amendment, even if it did fail, it would show you had sympathy for the one part, but had a reality on the other part. And I think because all four Conservative councillors at the time voted against it, it seemed that you were unfeeling to all of it. When you've just explained you weren't unfeeling to all of it, and you've probably gone about it slightly the wrong way.
Can I just very quickly pick
Yeah.
you up on something you said there in passing?
Oh.
And sorry.
No, I had to adjust my shoulder.
Because it's something I've seen a lot on social media. You mentioned it there in
Yeah.
passing. I just really want to use this opportunity to set the record straight. And it's where you said about party groups being whipped and being whipped
Yeah.
for what to do. So I was the leader of the Conservative group for nearly 4 years. I never whipped a member of my group to vote a certain way ever. Since Matthew Boycey, who's now the leader of the Conservative group on the council, has done it for the last couple of months, he has never done that either. So I see it a lot, and unfortunately, I see it from your gang, the Bridgend County Independents on Facebook, about this kind of whipping system, and we're the only ones that stand up for the interests of our communities. That is not true. Like, there is, I can't speak for the Labour Party. I've never been a member of the party, thankfully, but I can only speak for my own party. We have never, ever, ever had a whipped vote in Bridgend County Borough Council, and thankfully, it's worked pretty well. We've always been able to stand up for our communities while we're doing it.
It's right, and I said I respect him. Does that, John Spans, what you did with Save the Fields and that, and I will respect councillors who do that, but you can see the perception from the ordinary people, not people just like me who listen to politics and look at politics, but the ordinary people where they see groups voting en masse for something that is really unpopular, like the council tax rise, and I did this in my video earlier. I can't believe that not one Labour councillor sat there during the vote and thought, well, this is wrong. People are in hardship at the moment, and okay, they may have not been given the correct details as the auditor pointed out on how much they did actually have in reserves, but they could have looked and thought, don't think that there was one councillor there who sat and thought, my constituents could do with a bit of a break here, let's not vote for a tax rise. But you saw every Labour councillor voting en masse, and then that's where the perception comes from, that parties are whipped in to vote a certain way when you look at it, and especially something unpopular as the tax rise was this year. Labour Party were the only party that actually voted for the tax rise, and because they had a majority, they actually put it through because too many people abstained on the vote. But that's the way it is, and I'm glad you never whipped any councillor into vote a certain way from the Tory party, and that's the way it should be. It should be.
No, I agree.
It should always be your constituents comes first, your party comes second. But we've seen in the past where party members have put their constituents first. They've been deselected. I'm not saying from the Conservative Party. I haven't got an instance that I can recall of anything like that. But we have seen in the last 6 years, Labour Party have done that. They've deselected 6 councillors, and most of those councillors, Councillor Penhale Thomas was one of them, deselected for standing up and saying, no, this is not what my constituents want. And he's come back and he's a fantastic independent councillor now, and he works hard for his community, as a lot of other councillors do, and quite a few of them got back in. And I think you shouldn't punish people for representing their constituents, regardless of what your party want.
And in all honesty, good politics, and this will not always be possible, but good politics, there shouldn't actually be a conflict between what is good best for your party and this. And ultimately, I can hold my head up high, and I know my other colleagues can as well, and say I have never voted in good conscience against the interests of my community, over my party. Sorry, my party over my community. And I'm proud to be able to say that, and that comes from a place, as I say, is that we have not whipped anybody to vote in a way that they were uncomfortable with, and I'm look, the Labour Party on here to defend themselves, so I won't try and criticise them too much. But I think the vote you cited there about a council tax this year and in previous years, they probably felt that conflict.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to a Labour council, but as yet none have agreed to speak to me or even replied to an email that I've sent. And I keep getting, oh, you only interviewed independents, and I put a
Well,
message
hopefully
up.
this will change. Yeah.
I put a message up the other day that said I'm interviewing Tom Giffard, and I've interviewed Ian Spiller, who's a Liberal Democrat as well. And I got, I think Martin was joking about, I thought you only interviewed independents. I said, watch out, we may have some big news on Friday. But yeah, I'm glad. I don't mind party politics. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I've only ever voted for one party, and that was Labour for the first time I ever voted. Since then, it's independents who I think, or I don't vote. If the independent candidate doesn't grab me and I think they're making sense, I won't vote for it, for any.
And I think just to add to that, I think there are good independent councillors, and I would never deny that. Just the same way there are good Labour councillors, there are good, well, there aren't any Liberal Democrat councillors really anymore, but there are good Conservative councillors. However, I think being an independent does not equal being a councillor.
No.
And I think that is the important distinction, right? And so for me, I don't care about my community any less than an independent councillor would. No. I live in Brackla. I love Brackla. The only difference is I am a Conservative. I am straight up and honest about my political beliefs because I want people to know what my political beliefs are so they know what they're getting when they vote for me.
Yes.
And again, I don't come here to criticise other parties, but I feel like sometimes with the independents, it kind of, you don't always know what you're getting. You don't always know what they stand for. No. And so, I would rather be more upfront and honest with the public about what my opinions are and what I stand for than hiding behind the kind of independent badge, if you like.
Yeah, because I know Labour criticise Bridgend County Independents a lot, and we don't just criticise them. The group has criticised Conservatives, but it's not about attacking. It's not something new, and it's not something just one side does. It's never been that way. Other groups do it, and in other areas, and it's just how it is. But there are fantastic independent councillors, fantastic party member councillors within the whole council, and you do see that. You see the way they care. It's like I admire Richard Young, the former communities thing. He does well. Yeah. He's on the same council as me, and I hear him talk a lot, and he does have passion for Pendray, which is what you want to see in a councillor, not, oh yeah, so we're going to do this now, but I don't get. But a councillor should talk to everybody, and help everybody, and we don't always see that. They ignore the critics when they need help and things like that, and see that. But you should help the people who criticise you as much as you help the people who are on your side and believe what you believe, because at the end of the day, they're your residents. And I'm not saying you've done that. I really don't know. No. But you've had your critics and everything, but I can't see the way I was speaking to you today and the way I've seen with things you have done with Save the Fields and in your community, that you would turn anybody away, even if they were your harshest critic. If they needed help and they are in your community, I'm sure you would help them.
And I think the line is, sorry, and I know you want to move on, so I'll be really quick. But no. I think there's a line for all politicians where, certainly now where I've got 700,000 constituents, right, where I'm happy to help anyone, but the one thing I won't put up with is abuse. No, and that is where I'm. Yeah, exactly. I don't think any councillor should, and I think as a councillor, as politicians generally, that's just where we've got to draw the line. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think abuse should stop. I've had it recently myself. I had something I did my rant with on Steve Bledsoe's interview at the end, and okay, I could take it. You criticise me, that's fine thing, but a lot of it, and I'm not blaming councillors, I'm not blaming individual parties or individual people, because it comes from everywhere. There are people out there that do take that step too far, do go over that line, and then sometimes they won't even try and retreat back over that line. They keep there doubling down and doubling down. That's the kind of politics I don't like. Yes, I'll criticise anybody if I think they've done something wrong. I'll praise them if I think they've done something right. you're a Conservative, John Spanswick's a Labour, and I've praised both of you today for what you've done with Save the Fields. When you get things right, in my mind, I will praise. If your policies I don't think are right, I will say, well, there's something wrong here. I don't agree with this, but I'm not going to say you're...
Yeah, but let's keep it civilised and
and that's what politics should be. But now it seems to be, I'm nastier than you.
Yes.
And that's...
Yeah. And I think, you know, from my perspective, and I'm really sorry to keep...
No, carry on.
But like, from my perspective, you know, the job for us as a party is obviously to encourage people to stand and like, be really good community champions, but they're kind of on the fence. And actually that toxicity is what puts people off. And I see it a lot with female candidates as well. And, you know, that environment is, you know, quite macho and quite off-putting for, you know, female candidates have told me that it is like that. And the abuse sometimes can be quite a lot stronger for whatever reason towards female candidates than it is for male candidates. So it's not just about me, it's not just about the party or the Labour group or the independent group or anybody else. To have good politics in Bridgend, we need decent people to stand. Yeah. And if politics in Bridgend is toxic, decent people will not stand. It is the people who engage with that kind of politics will be the ones that do stand.
Yeah. I spoke about this with Steve Bledsoe, and he fully acknowledged at the beginning his thumbs were a bit out of control at the start, and he tempered himself a lot since then. And people still think it's him, but it's not him, it's others. And he said that's what is off-putting. He said we would have more female politicians if it wasn't so. And it's not just personal negative, but it's really biting negative. It's getting down to the root of a person. Like, oh, you're ugly, you're wearing the wrong clothes, you're wearing the wrong shoes, you have the wrong beliefs, and that shouldn't matter. Criticise policies and ideas by all means. That's fine. That's what they're there for, to be criticised.
And maybe this is something you can do in the role you're currently doing, is, you know, I would certainly, for one, would like to get together with some of the other parties before this next this council election in next May, and agree a kind of decency pledge where we say, right, okay, here's the line, here's where we're going to draw it. You know, we're going to be very respectful to each other, and as you say, disagree where we disagree, but you know, let's not make it personal, and let's not fight at one another, because that's what people in Bridgend want to see. And so, you know, if other parties would be up for signing, you know, some agreement like that, I certainly would be.
Well, Alex Williams the other day said, well, why don't you do a debate with the leaders of each group and things like that? I said, that's a fantastic idea. One problem: Zoom costs £100 odd to do group thing. I'm on universal credit. I don't have that sort of thing. If we had it in a room, I'd have to hire the room, have the cameras for each thing, and my audio equipment. I don't have that sort of money. I'm on a computer that's failing as we're talking. It keeps flickering on my side, so I just don't have sort of the money to set up that. I'd love to do that. I'd love to be walking around the whole of the county in different wards and introducing councillors and walking around with them and saying, what are your problems in this ward? Show us and we'll get it on film. And people can think. I'd like to sit down and talk with residents and clerks of councils, because I think they do fantastic work and people don't really know about them and what they do. We can't do our job without them. There's no way we could as community councillors. Anyway, we're running short of time at the moment, so I'll get on to the next question, which is, with the boundary changes in the council that come next year, what are yours and your party's thoughts on the changes, and how will it affect the Conservatives? This is a residents' question.
Yeah, so from my perspective, the Conservative, the point I guess you made about the Conservatives is kind of secondary. For me, the purpose of boundary changes is twofold, right? So first of all, wards kind of need to be the same size throughout the county. I think in the last set of boundaries, there were some areas where you had one councillor represented a completely different number of people to another area. That meant there were some people underrepresented and some people overrepresented. And when one councillor has one vote, that vote should correlate with the number of people that they represent, right? And I think it's unfair where that kind of parallel has come apart. So that's number one. So there's some really pleased these boundary changes have happened. But secondly, it's important that the boundaries are boundaries that people identify with. So it doesn't, it's not like, oh, well, halfway down a street, one ward is connected to another, right? It needs to be contiguous communities that people kind of recognize. So in Brackler specifically, I like the proposals because at the moment I am one of 4 councillors for Brackler. And as I say, I'm not standing again, so it doesn't bother me personally. But I think there can be confusion as to who is best to contact when you've got 4 names written in front of you.
Yeah.
I think it is better to have one person, or sometimes 2, I guess, as a single point of contact. So people know, right, that is my councillor, and that is who I contact, and that is who represents me in my area, rather than there are 4 there and I can pick one, or, I'm a Labour voter, so I'll pick the Labour one, or I'm a Conservative voter, so I'll pick the Conservative one. I don't really think that works particularly well. So I think a boundary change, certainly in my neck of the woods, has delivered more 1-member wards, and I'm pleased about that.
But it's opposite in,
yes.
breaking up Brackler, but Coity Higher, they're making 1 ward. Pencoed, they're making 1 ward. So I don't understand how the logic works. Oh, Brackler will have 1 member per area, which is great, which is how it should be, because then your councillor is personally responsible for that area, and they're going to be visible, and people are going to see that where you have 3, 4, or even 5.
There is nowhere to hide if there's only one of you.
No, there's nowhere to hide. But if there's a ward of 3, 4, or even 5 councillors, you can have 2 or 3 of them actually hiding away and others just doing all the work. And it doesn't work. So it's a good perspective for Brackler. I think it's brilliant. Each area knows who their councillor is going to be. There's not 4 of them. But the boundary change, I won't discuss this with you, but the boundary changes are going to be different with the parliamentary. And
yes, that's a whole different,
Yeah, and that was so weird the way they've carved Bridgend up. It just doesn't.
And that goes back to the point, and again, we won't dwell on it, but it goes back to the point I was making about contiguous communities that people recognise. Splitting Bridgend down the middle is not a community that anyone would recognise. So
no, it isn't. Okay, we'll get on to the last resident question.
Yeah.
If after the next election that an alliance of other groups has control of the council, would the Conservatives seek to work with them to get more of a overall balanced view of the county? Because if you've got Independents, Lib Dem, Propel, Plaid Cymru all working together, and different independence group working together, and add that to Conservatives, working as a group would represent more of the county. So would that be something the Conservatives would look at?
So look, from my perspective, look, we're aiming for a majority. We're standing really good candidates. Obviously, we're aiming for a majority. However, as your question implies, if there is no majority, look, we're always open to working cross-party lines, and I think we have worked across party lines. I think it's important to remember that Labour don't have majority in BCBC currently.
No.
So certainly when I was group leader, I had a very good relationship with Laura Clark, who led the independent group, and we worked together on a range of issues where we agreed. And I think that is the grown-up way to do politics. Where you agree, all right, you don't agree on everything, otherwise you'd be in the same party. But where you do agree, let's work together. But there's 2 kind of red lines for me. First of all, is on council tax. That I wouldn't want to work with a group that has the same kind of plan for council tax as we've seen from the Labour Council over the last 5 years. No way. Time we thought about creative ways to put money back into people's pockets. And ultimately, we had a discussion about 10 minutes ago about sort of the toxicity and the bile from certain people. They are not people that I would necessarily want to work with. So I think independents, all parties that spend time on social media spouting out some of the things I've seen from them over the last few years, to then turn around after that election and say, hey, let's be best friends, won't fly. We've all got a responsibility to detoxify politics in the end. And I think some of those groups might think, oh, well, actually, maybe we could do a deal with them, and maybe we could do a deal with them. But that is a red line for me. We want to work with decent people as well as as well as people we agree with ideologically. But look, any deal that we do would have to be in the interests of the residents of Bridgend. Like, we wouldn't sign up for anything that would sort of be counter to that, or we would be uncomfortable with. So, my door, or whoever is, I guess Matthew Boyce's door, who's the group leader at the moment, is open. But we have got red lines as well, is what I would, the best way I would put it.
That's great. You ruined my last question, which was what are you going to do in the next election? You've answered that twice already. So I'm going to throw something in there out of it. It's not a question that's going to put you on the spot. It's, well, as a Senate member, do you plan to work closer with not just the county council but community council? Because we know that some councillors can't get hold of their Senate member to help them with things, or they're ignored. Amanda Williams last week was saying as soon as she became an independent, Carwyn Jones would never speak to her, never reply to any courtesy email. But it's got to be a closer working relationship with community councils, because they are on the ground floor, and you being a community councillor can see how effective and closer to the ground the community councils are. So as a Senate member, is it something you're going to do, is work closer on those issues?
I think look, as I said about on the previous question, my door's always open to work with anybody, if it's in the interests of people of Bridgend, right? The caveat I would throw in is the caveat I also threw in the previous question, is that there are, I don't think I'd be incorrect to say there are certain characters in Bridgend that make it very difficult for you to work with them because of the way they approach certain issues. And I think, look, I've always worked very closely with Jamie Wallace, our MP here. Appreciate we're both in the same party, but actually, as we gave the example earlier about Coychurch Road, the ability to have, a councillor, a Senate member, and an MP all pushing on those same doors on the same issue is actually really, really, really effective. But look, I'll work with anybody from across any party. If it serves the interests of constituents, I'm always happy to do that, and I always will do that. And the point you made about getting hold of Senate members, I hope, from putting this discussion together, and I'm doing things like doing Zooms and things with local schools and things like that. And I'm opening this office here. As you can see, I'm not really unpacked anything, but I've got an office now in Porthcawl. So, from my perspective, I want to be as visible and as active as I possibly can be. So hopefully that's not something that people would say about me. Hopefully.
No, I've got to admit, I missed initially. I did messenger to you, and you said yes, that's great. I'll do the interview. Just contact my staff so we can arrange it. Mm-hmm. And one of your staff members, Community Councillor Brackler, Kay Rowlands, has been fantastic in setting this up with me. She knows I've had issues. She's passed those issues on to yourself, and we've eventually arranged for today. This was the original date we were going to do, but I had to say I can't do that because I'm not sure where I'm going to be living, but I got a bit of a reprieve, which was great. We've still got that time free. Do you want it? Yeah. And you've been fantastic, and thank you for everything we do. We've just run past the hour, so I won't keep you any longer because I know your time is very limited and you've got a lot to do, and I'm not the only important one. Jamie Wallace has agreed to do an interview with me. Just waiting for his staff to set that up. That's great. I wonder if one of you could get Boris Johnson on with me. That would be brilliant. That would just send my channel on YouTube. I could get thousands of subscribers then and start earning money off YouTube.
Jamie's the man to ask on that one. He sees him more regularly. Yeah.
I'll try. So thank you very much for doing this today. It's been great.
I really enjoyed it, actually. It's really good to chat. And hey, look, as you said, you're involved with independence and I'm a conservative, but I think we found loads of areas where we've agreed, and loads of areas of common ground. And I think, look, it's the example we're trying to set with politics, right?
Yeah.
Where we disagree, I think we've been very respectful of it as well. So
yeah, we're not having a slanging match, but as I said, this is not what I want the channel to be. I want channel so people can be informed of what you actually do and how you do it, because not everybody knows, not even me. I'm a political junkie. I read everything. I read the American stuff. I read the British stuff. And I don't know what's going on with everything. It's good to hear how people go about doing their jobs, because not everybody does it the same. Not every council does it the same way, and things like that. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll say goodbye. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and thank you to Tom again. We'll see you soon. I believe I've got another interview arranged, hopefully at some point next week, with Jefferson Tilsley, one of our longest serving councillors in Bridgend.
That'll be a good one. You want to tune in for that one?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that. I've been reading up on Councillor Tilsley, and he's got a very, very good background, which I'll speak more on that. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye. Have a good day.